For today's video, I'm visiting the parade in Dudley, just modern houses and green space, until you look closer and there's gravestones. Anyway, let's have a look at the history of this interesting area of Dudley. This green space on the parade in Dudley seems pretty ordinary at first. Grass, pathways, modern houses. But look a little closer and there are gravestones hidden throughout this landscape. Some are almost disappearing into the ground and others certainly aren't. Like this one. This is the grave of Jean Sibley, who was just 15 years old. And suddenly you realise these aren't just strange stones scattered around an estate. These were people's graves. So I started walking around and investigating, and that's when you realise how much of this old burial ground still survives. There are stones standing upright, others lying flat. Some have sunk like this one so far they're barely visible. This apparently ordinary green space has a much older story. Now, St James's Church was built here between 1838 and 1840, designed by local architect William Bourne as Dudley expanded rapidly during the Industrial Revolution. And by 1841, Dudley had more than 17,000 inhabitants. So St James's was built here at Eve Hill, and with the church came its burial ground. And more than a century later, traces of that burial landscape are still here. Even beneath this tree, you can see a gravestone slowly disappearing into the ground. And we know that this burial ground didn't remain the same size. Records show that an extension was approved in 1891, with additional cemetery ground being prepared by 1893, and it continued to grow. In 1935, Dudley Borough Council approved the transfer of around 160 square yards of land between the parade and St James's Churchyard to the church. Then, in 1936, another adjoining piece of land was formally added to the existing churchyard. So this wasn't simply a little graveyard immediately surrounding the church. As Dudley grew, the burial ground expanded with it. And when you reach the surviving churchyard today, suddenly all those gravestones down the road across the green space begin to make sense. Because overlooking this entire landscape is the reason they're here. St James the Great. The church was consecrated on 27th of July 1840 and became its own parish in 1844. Remarkably, its final service wasn't held until 28th of July 2024, almost exactly 184 years after it opened. It was formally closed the following year, but although the church has now fallen silent, its story is still written across this landscape, because those gravestones amongst the modern houses aren't really out of place at all. The graves were here first. It's the Dudley around them that's changed.